Yeah.
Well, man, it's great to meet you. I'm looking forward to peeling back the layers of your life and your professional world. Thank you for taking a minute out.
It's my pleasure.
So, to begin everything, I want to start our conversation with 4 years ago, one of the more momentous events of our lifetime with COVID happened. How did you
Right.
survive the pandemic, and how did it subsequently change you?
Well, it was a scary time for everybody. So first, I had to get myself centered.
Yeah.
First, I had to find my foundation, my grounding, how I was going to navigate the new set of circumstances that we all were experiencing. So I went through my own process of reassuring myself things are going to be okay. It's going to be difficult, but there are ways of making it through. And that's an important step that I always take when I'm faced with big challenges. What do I see the light at the end of the tunnel? What does that look like? I begin painting those pictures to reassure myself, because I know when I reassure myself and I get grounded, I think more clearly.
Yeah.
And I think more clearly that I move forward in a better way. Then, I was bombarded with a lot of people who were anxious, fearful, stressed. And so actually what I began doing is I began sending out daily coping stress mechanisms. So every day I sent out to thousands of people that are in my network how to deal with the current pandemic. And I sent those out for a full year, 365 days. And each day I addressed one of my 9 pillars of resilience. How to, in your relationship with yourself, relationship with others, relationship with something greater, how are you going to handle today in the best possible way? And so what I did with myself, I then translated into doing with other people and helping other people get through the first year, the most difficult year of the pandemic.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students. It's career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Uh, I would first try to identify with that child, and I would ask that child, what's your day like? What kind of challenges do you experience? What's scary for you? And when they say that, I would then say, my life, my career is designed to help people get through their most difficult challenges. I want to help prepare people to be the best version of themselves. I want to help people identify their blind spots, what they're not seeing that can hurt them, their unfinished emotional business, issues that have been hanging around people for their entire lives or since just last week. It could be either of those. And what's the best way to approach your day, the challenges of your day? So it's about mindset, it's about relationship, it's about how to be in this present moment. And that's, I started out in brain research. I was interested in where and how memory and learning take place in the brain. But then I shifted into working directly with people. So I like to ask the subjects that I'm working with how they're feeling. And so my work has been a actual laboratory of working with people, finding what works, finding what doesn't work, finding what people's resistance is to their own growth and development. So I've kind of established this notion of our primitive Gestalt patterns, the lessons of childhood that get branded literally into our neural network. And that's why we have difficulty changing, learning, growing, transforming, because we have that gravitational pull. But then it's about how to engage this amazing capacity we have of neuroplasticity, this amazing capacity of our brains to change.
Yeah.
So we have the pull of the old pattern that's powerful, and we have neuroplasticity that's just as powerful. How do we stay over here to let go of what we have over here?
Well said. So what did you want to be at that point in your life in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
I wanted to be a baseball player.
Okay. Okay. What was your team?
The New York Yankees. I grew up in the Bronx.
Okay, I can hear the accent. Yeah. Did you see that special, the movie they made on Yogi Berra?
I did not.
Wow. I had no idea how magnanimous and what a titan he was. Like everywhere he went, he won. And he was
Right.
always just kind of seen a little bit as a clowny guy, but he was a really seriously grounded, good family guy. You know, he all the ingredients of a good human he
Uh-huh.
embodied, but he was a winner. So it was you should check it out. I think it's on Amazon or something like that.
I will check it out because, Mickey Mantle, Yogi Berra were my heroes.
I just took my son to see his first. We went as a family to see our first NBA game in Oklahoma City. It's the closest we could go. And they have a AAA, the AAA team for the Dodgers is there. And they have like a shrine to all the people from Oklahoma, and they have a huge Mickey Mantle statue. I didn't
Oh,
realize he
wow.
was from Oklahoma. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
wild, man. So
Yeah.
it's cool. Um, so let me ask you this. How did we get here? Take me back to your childhood, and how did you get to a point where you wanted to get into a profession to help people psychologically and to change their lives and get to a better place? How did that become your life?
That's a good question. Well, I was very fortunate. I had a really great childhood. And I was very close with my grandparents who had a farm outside of New York. I spent all my early summers on my grandparents' farm. So a city guy going out to the farm every summer, and I loved it. I loved being out in nature, out in the just out in the fields, and enjoyed that. But it gave me also, as I earlier talked about grounding, it gave me a good grounding, a good sense of myself. Um, my early adulthood, I had struggles with in my primary relationship because my partner was diagnosed with both anxiety and depression. So that sort of took me down into my own process of feelings and emotions, because as wonderful as my family was, they were phobic around feelings. It's the best way to
I
put it.
get it. I
And
get it.
my mother would tell little white lies just so to avoid discomfort, just to avoid any kind of emotions. So it was the encounter in my primary relationship that really caused me to go deeper inside myself, because I was sort of at the surface based on my training. And we all live our lives out based on the training lessons of our childhood, unless something wakes us up.
Yeah.
Something says this isn't working.
Yeah.
And most people go through their lives without that wake up, or or the wake up call might be there, but they don't pick up the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's what got me more deeply into my own process, my own feelings and emotions, and really recognizing how important dealing with our feelings is. That when we don't deal with our feelings, they come out in toxic ways. They wind up hurting us. They wind up we turn them back on ourselves.
Yeah.
Like guilt. Guilt is usually a feeling we have, like, of anger towards somebody, but we don't feel that we're allowed to be angry at that person, such as a parent that we feel we should be loyal to. And so we turn those feelings back on ourselves. So those were the early lessons in my life that caused me to go deeper. And then once I started doing that, I realized the importance of that. In my very first class in psychology in college, it was an interesting course because it was a behavioral course. I had my own little rat, in a little cage, and I would train it to press a bar to get a pellet of food, and then I would train it on different schedules. Like, okay, now you're only going to get a pellet after 1 minute, so it's landing on that bar,
Yep.
and then once at the end of a minute, it'll get something, or a variable schedule. And I began to realize that relates very well to how we live our lives in terms of how we get reinforced. So I was fascinated by that. And between those lessons and my own personal lessons, I began to feel this pull toward figuring out why we do what we do and how we can make it better. In the 90s, I did a lot of work with professional and Olympic athletes and peak performance. That was sort of like the culmination of my work and interest in what makes us tick, what makes us get better. And so I wanted to work with the very best and find out how to help them get even better. And so all of these experiences has contributed to an overall picture of learning and performance and emotions, and it led me to a model of resilience that distills everything that we can think of down into these 9 pillars of a model that I've created, that I work with people so that they're able to handle the stresses and the challenges in their lives in the best possible way.
So you have to deal with high octane people and you're highly driven yourself. Who has been that hero or inspiration in your life to help you be who you are in your career?
I've had a few different mentors. I was very fortunate in my early career to be mentored by one of the pioneers in neuroscience. His name was Donald Hebb. And Donald Hebb wrote the first real book that really explained how learning takes place in the brain, the changes that take place. He's the one that coined the phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was an early mentor. I spent many years mentoring with a shaman from South America and seeing the world from that perspective, a very different perspective. Currently, I have another mentor, a woman who's a physician who integrates modern science with ancient approaches. And she, for example, one of the approaches that I use is called neurofeedback. So neurofeedback is a type of biofeedback in which you literally monitor a person's brain waves and then feed that information back to them, showing the different frequency bands. So our brain waves have different frequencies, from very slow to very fast. And you feed that information back to a person so they literally can learn to produce more of certain frequencies and less of other frequencies. This is a powerful approach. It's used now for attention deficit disorder, because people with attention deficit disorders have too much theta, a slow wave. That's why their brains are functioning more slowly, and reducing those and lifting other frequencies. It's used for seizure control and a lot of other approaches. We published a study using neurofeedback in addiction, and we got tremendous results of abstinence after using neurofeedback. So, but she integrates that with the Chinese meridians and the chakra system to produce even better results. So I've looked around for people that have a unique perspective that I've learned from, and again, incorporating all of these into my own approach.
So what was the first discovery or first client that you had when you were a professional where you were like, this makes sense. This is my raison d'etre. This is my life.
A lot of the clients that I've worked with over the years have produced that kind of aha in me. In fact, it still happens.
Yeah.
It still happens with almost every client I work with on a daily basis. I have some awareness, some new way, something that I say to them that just clicks. And then I turn around and I put that into my social media posts to share those insights with my audience. But I had when it comes to stress and resilience, I had one client. He was an executive, and he came to me because he had all of these problems. He was stressed out and financial difficulties. And I began working with him on a weekly basis and dealing with this issue, dealing with this issue. And we made progress slowly. And I'll never forget, we had gotten to a place where I thought, I think after we address this issue, this client is going to have a breather for the first time since he and I started working together. I think we're getting to this place where he could, feel a sense of relief. And the next week he comes in with a whole new set of problems. He was out in his sailboat, and somehow a wave pushed his sailboat against the jetty, wrecking his sailboat, and on and on and on. And it was then that I had one of my epiphanies, which is that when you push down your feelings for various reasons, lessons learned in childhood, and then you feel uncomfortable as those feelings come to the surface, you actually invite stress into your life, because stress, among other things, distracts you from those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a clear illustration to me of how powerful our feelings are, that they can be so uncomfortable to deal with that we will actually create stress in our lives to avoid those feelings that are so uncomfortable. And that's built into my model of resilience, because my sixth pillar is emotional balance and mastery. That if you want to be resilient, you have to take a look at those emotional wounds, whether they're from childhood or from more recent years in your life.
So what's the motivation every day to get up and do the work that you do, to help others and to also evolve as a human yourself? What is that for you?
Well, I think when you're successful at something, that becomes a motivation. And so people change that work with me. People change who read my book. People change who listen to my talks. They come back for more. And when they come back and tell me how their lives have changed, that's a tremendous reinforcer to me. It's tremendously motivating for me to continue doing what I'm doing. And the other reason is that I have these great detective. I have these great mysteries that I'm faced with on a daily basis. Why does this person function the way they function? Why do they keep making the same mistakes over and over again? Why aren't they learning from experience? These are amazing mysteries that I get to solve on a daily basis. So it's a combination of the rewards of it as well as the challenges of it.
So of all of the things that you've done and accomplished in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Well, I like to appreciate whatever's happening now in the moment. So right now, I'm most proud of my book
Yeah.
that actually will launch on June 4th. The 9 Pillars of Resilience, the Proven Path to Master Stress, Slow Aging, and Increased Vitality. So that's that. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the research that I've done that's been pioneering. So I published the first controlled study using neurofeedback in an addiction program. And now that model is being used all over the world in treatment centers. 2 years ago, I published another study. I have a colleague who does a lot of work with cancer patients, cancer survivors, and their families. And he had for a few years been talking to me about this symptom of chemotherapy referred to as chemo brain. Have you ever heard of that
I've
term?
heard of that. Yeah.
So when you have high doses of chemotherapy
Hmm.
and when you have had cancer, one of the consequences is chemo brain, which is a cognitive fog. It's people can't, many have to leave their jobs because they can't fully function in their jobs. They can't maintain concentration. They can't maintain focus. There are a lot of other consequences, poor sleep. So we decided to do a neurofeedback intervention with a group of breast cancer survivors who had chemo brain. And we worked with a small group. It was a pilot study. But these women came in and said that, they've lost their lives because of this effect.
Yeah.
They couldn't do one woman said, I can't read a novel because I can't hold the threads of the story through that reading that novel. And we did an intervention and we got tremendous results. The people said they got their lives back. The interesting thing is we did what's referred to as a quantitative EEG at the beginning and at the end of our study. So a quantitative EEG, you put an array of electrodes, 21 electrodes on all over the scalp, and you record the brain waves. You look at those brain waves and you compare them to normative data. You compare them to average data. And what was amazing with the QEEGs at the start of the study, before we did the intervention, was that there was more than 2 standard deviations elevation in the very slowest brain waves.
Wow.
These are delta brain waves. These are the brain waves that are dominant during sleep.
Yeah.
So no wonder these women were having such struggles with cognitive function. Their brains were half asleep.
Yeah.
But we did an intervention and we almost completely normalized the brainwave patterns and got tremendous improvement in cognitive functioning. So again, it was a study we did that opens the door to more people looking at this process and how it can help other people with cognitive deficits.
So at the end of the day, Stephen, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, my goal, one of my goals always in life is to be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
That's how I wake up in the morning and that's how I live my life. How can I make this day the best possible day? So that's, to begin with, that's my orientation about myself and about how I want to help other people. I believe in giving back. I believe that it's important to have purpose in my life. I believe that I need to be doing something in terms of my work that's helping other people and
Yeah.
helping other people be better at what they do. A couple of years ago, I did a summit on leadership. And one of the tracks of my career and tracks of my work is to work with senior executive CEOs to help them be the best version of themselves, because when they are the best version of themselves, that impacts hundreds, if not thousands of other people.
Yeah.
So it's a way for me to magnify the impact of the work that I do.
So if anyone wants to get the 9 pillars, they want to learn more about you, reach out, hire you, any of the good business, where can they go?
So my website is drstephensideroff.com. My book is available on Amazon. It's available on Barnes and Noble. They can access purchasing the book through my website. And I have other programs. I have programs. I'm just completing a program for a large corporation where I'm working with their employees to help them become more resilient. And I'm hired by corporations because I have a track record of people that I work with performing better after they work with me. So they not only are healthier, but they perform better as well. And that's an important key to the work that I do. A lot of times people think, well, if I'm gonna need to take time to get healthier, that's time I have to take away from being productive. And what I've been able to show people in the business community is that they can go together, that when you improve health, you also improve performance. You have less absenteeism, you have greater productivity. And so an employee will be both happier and more productive. And so that's my message to corporations that I work with. And it's my message to CEOs about how they, in their own lives, can be both healthier and more productive.
Wonderful. Dr. Sideroff, this has been so fascinating. Thank you, sir, for your time. Keep doing the wonderful work.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.